Hello and good morning, and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and it is now the 13th of November, Wednesday. I have to remind myself what day of the week it is. Hello, Sam. Good morning, afternoon. And Joanne, good morning. We are, and Melissa, good morning. Yeah, we are definitely at the early morning. Alex, good morning. Jenny, good morning. Everybody's on at 7 this morning. It's wow. I'm impressed. Well, 7 or noon actually in Sam's case. It's another kind of pretty day out. I mean, the colors are obviously not as vibrant. We are past peak now, but it is a nice morning. I think we're supposed to finally get like a real hard freeze. I'm gonna probably go out and finish my leaves today, this morning at some point. But tonight we have the ISFM class, the last set of 2. So it's going to be Max Orsini presenting tonight at 6:30 Eastern time. And he's also going to be presenting next week, and his is going to be really interesting. It's going to be on women's poetry, and I think he's calling it something like transformation image by image, something like that. So it's going to be something that extends from the first lecture to the seminar the next week, where he's going to talk more about the way in which these images can be used for transformation and so forth. So yeah, I think almost everybody. Pat hasn't been on, I've noticed, but I think she's had a change in her work hours. I think that's why we're not seeing her. But she's the only other person. So expect an email from me today. I did actually email everybody a couple of days ago. And Joanne, you told me you don't think you have the link. I'm going to send that to you in your messenger. So I haven't forgotten about you on that. I just figured I would do it today, so it's not like you have to go scroll back if you get more messages to find it. So I'm going to definitely do that. That's coming up today, and just finishing up, cleaning up, clearing out. I did take a day off yesterday. I was getting emails about various things. I'm not worried. Yeah, I didn't think you would be worried. But it was, one other thing really quick too. I know Suda's not on yet, but when she comes on, I might repeat this. Melissa and I are doing the, tarot / aura photo thing. The Wix is whack though, not gonna lie. Yeah, it's like you have to sign in and then you have to go find your group in there, and I don't know. I have to evaluate before next term how I'm gonna negotiate the Wix groups. Like, I have to, what's the easy instructions that I can give to students on how to use it, because it just seems like it's I don't know. Anyway, that's a separate topic. I'll have to address that for sure. You can't get that far. Well, you know what it is? Everything is based on going to the website, clicking on the little lock, and then being able to sign in. But I think you were saying you were having trouble with your sign in too. It didn't, because the thing is, I don't know, you've taken classes with me. So you never actually signed up on the site and paid for classes. So it's like, I don't know. We can figure it out together at some point, like what's going on with the logins, because Pat had trouble with that too, and I just think it's ridiculous that Wix makes it so difficult. I'm like, how are you going to set up this kind of a thing and promote yourself as kind of this world-class, internet service when you can't even seem to manage a small thing like this, or it's just too complicated. So I don't know. In any case, I spend a lot of time yelling at Wix support. Well, not really yelling at them because it's not their fault personally, but just kind of complaining about why is this so hard for people to use? Why is there 20 steps to this? That's not the way good products are designed. But anyway, yesterday I had a lot of stuff coming in, where I just had a lot of emails and requests, to do different things, and I was like, no, Tuesday's my day off. I will look at things later in the week, because yesterday I did this morning live stream. Obviously, I did finish up the tarot readings, so those are all posted. Libra through Pisces is now posted. So if you of those signs, and I think some people, yes, apparently I had Wix at one point, so I changed my password. I already have an account change password. Good for you. It's Alex. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I just figured, no, I have to. I've got some people who are excited about projects they're working, not in the school, but who are excited about projects, and they're like, "Can you look at this? Can you look at this?" I'm like, "I'll look at it. I'll take a fast look today, and I'll look at it more thoroughly tomorrow." Taking the day for myself. Yeah. Well, that was it, and I decided I did actually go out and grab lunch out yesterday. Not that I had to. My sister and I went for a walk as per usual. And Suda, good morning. Oh, good. I'm glad you're on because I was just going to talk about the event that I'm doing with Melissa on December 1st, which I know you were saying you were interested in attending. I think as of right now, I don't know if you've actually registered for it, but you have to pick a time slot and pre-register on Melissa's site. So, because when Melissa and I talked last night, and it seems like there's only one person out of the 3 who are told me they're going that have registered. Now, it could just be that you plan to register later, and that's totally fine. But just, you will, yes. Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that you know that that's the way the setup is. So that's awesome. And then I have somebody else. Actually, Natalie, I know, watches this live stream after. If you were planning to doing that, just letting her know too, yeah, that you need to sign up and pick a time slot, in the future. So just to make sure everybody is clear on that, because I don't want to, I don't want all the time slots to fill up and then have somebody come and go, oh, I thought I could just, do that. Because we were thinking about doing it that way, actually. And maybe if there were open time slots, we could do that. But right now, we just figured we've got people pre-booking. So we're just, we don't want to, we were talking last night, like, we don't want to beat, we do and don't want to beat people over the head with advertising for that one. So, but Melissa's been doing a great job of putting stuff together, and I want to put together my own promotion of that as well. So I was just mentioning that to people because I wasn't sure if people had signed up, and then for some reason it didn't register. So that was the only thing I was concerned about there. So anyway, okay. So yesterday afternoon I went out and I always bring something to read when I go out by myself if I'm not going out with friends, and so I reread this book, which the author happens to be myself. And I wrote this book in, this is one of the ones that came out this year. This book and Regenerator both came out this year. I finished this one in England last year. And I don't know. It's funny, when I do my own work, when I hear things, when I listen to like writing workshops and different things, and people talk about character development and different stuff, and I always think, we're always so critical of our own work. I'm like, well, I don't know if I did a great job developing these characters. I don't know if, I'm always kind of this way and that way. But it's, I'll go back and I'll reread this work sometimes. And I'm kind of like, I was looking at it and I was like, wow, actually the character's pretty well developed in this one. Like it flows in a lot of ways as a story. And it's a pretty fast read, actually. I mean, I read the whole thing. I started it when I was out, and then I finished it last night again. And I was like, yeah, actually this one hangs together really, really well. So I'm basically, I don't know, there's just certain novels, when I go back and look at the work that I've done, Morrigan Timelines is actually probably my least favorite now. I mean, and with no offense to the Morrigan, but that one, I don't know. I'm kind of this way and that way on that one. Maeve I like a lot. I think Maeve turned out really well. Project Lethe is great, and I haven't reread Regenerator lately. I'm not sure between the two if I like one of those more. So, and I do like my short story collection still. I'm like, I don't know. I had somebody read it and they said, oh, I feel like your writing is much more developed between the short story collection and then Maeve. Like they felt that Maeve was much better developed, and I'm like, I don't know if I agree. I like my original short story collection. I think, even though there are themes that I'm probably not working with as much now, or certain themes in there ended up getting developed more in other books. I don't know. It's still something, the fact that it's something that I want to reread and it's my own work. A lot of authors, they write stuff and they're like, I don't ever want to look at my own work again. Like, unless you're like, I don't know, on a book tour promoting it or something. You do kind of, you start to look at your own work with a jaundiced eye, or you go, oh, I can't believe I wrote that. I did want to ask you at some point, this is Alex, if I can order some books. I know you mentioned it. Yes, I'm waiting for the books to come in, the shipment to come in. And as soon as I have the shipment, then I'm going to, because I've ordered everything wholesale. So as soon as the copies arrive, which might take a week or two, I'm going to create the links on Square, because I have the Square credit card software thing, so people want to order them. And yes, and then people can order them directly from me, and it's going to include shipping, and then I can ship it out to you. So yes, 100%. I do have a few books right now that I think I have a copy of Maeve. Perfect. Oh, you're welcome. I think I have, some copies of Project Lethe, and I have some copies of Regenerator right now. Those are the three that I have. What I've ordered is Archetype Possession. I've ordered more copies of Morrigan Timelines and a few more copies of Maeve as well. Basically, I mean, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm basically just having like 5 of each, basically, because I'm not expecting there's going to be like swarms of hundreds of people who are going to buy these. And given that I'm trying to get ready to move, I don't want to have a whole lot of stock. So I'm like, I just want to have enough for enough people who are interested in the different titles. And then maybe, we'll see where I am with that at the end of the season. So so that will be coming up with that. So that was what I did yesterday. And then, of course, took a little afternoon nap. And then it seems like the day's over because the sun goes down like 4:45 or something like that. It was 4:44 the other day. So, days are going by really quickly. Now we have this full moon coming up on Friday. And this one seems like it's got another like Uranus explosion in it somewhere, because Uranus is very much is connected to Taurus, and this is a full moon in Capricorn. There is a connection between these, so this is supposed to be one of the really, really, really potent full moons before the end of the year. And there could be we had big surprises at the beginning of the month. We could have big surprises at the middle of the month too. So we'll see what Friday brings. I'll probably pull out the astrology cards for that. Yes, I hear Algol is involved again. Oh, there's the Medusa thing. Yes, right. Algol's the head of Medusa. And, that's interesting. Because last time I think I was talking a lot about Eris, because I think Eris was very much involved. But now, I'm gonna look up all the astrology on that before Friday, so we can talk about that, because I'm sure that'll be Friday's topic. Today's topic, however, the thing that I was, like I said, I get up early and I will do card pulls on different things, both collective and personal. And the one collective card that keeps coming up is the Three of Swords. Okay, so the Three of Swords has to do with separation or isolation or hurt, like brokenheartedness, being separated from somebody, feeling alone, feeling isolated, is oftentimes, or trying to heal from said wound, is what we're looking at. And that seems to be the thing. I think there's a feeling, because it's always showing up with a card like the Eight of Wands. So it's the idea that things are rapidly changing and people feel isolated. Okay, now for there might be some obvious reasons for that, but then there's also some maybe more individual that may not have to do so much with the collective, but nonetheless, I feel like the astrology more generally has put us in a place where things are moving and changing, and when they're shaken up, we may feel like we are kind of facing an uphill battle by ourselves. Or that we have our work cut out for us. A lot of people in the readings this week, it said, okay, like people have calls to leadership, okay? And actually, I was talking to somebody over the weekend who had said, and it's always people who've been said kind of like, I'm tired, I'm ready to retire. I don't want to be a leader right now. I just want to retire somewhere, But and again, I'm not necessarily saying this may or may not have to do with politics. I don't necessarily think that's the case for everybody. But I think that the changes here are more about the shift is more about the way in which it's almost like all of a sudden there's like a lot happening for people at once, and now it's like, okay, the things that I was familiar with, that Four of Pentacles energy, I feel secure where I'm at. I'm good hanging on to what I've got. I don't, it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there's that kind of mentality, but nonetheless, there seems to be this idea that this feeling of isolation that people are having, and certainly, there are things. Three of Swords is a very divisive kind of card. It says breaking off, And there may be people, I feel like there are people who are breaking off relationships. There are people who are, or just people who just feel like they're working on something or they're working towards something and they just feel very alone. Like, like it's overwhelming. Like it's a 10 of Wands kind of energy. Like, oh God, I've got to carry all this and I've got to carry it by myself. So for some people, if there has been a sense of isolation, if you feel like you have broken off from somebody, or maybe there's been a clarity about a relationship or a situation, maybe somebody who you thought had your back doesn't, and that kind of a thing. So that can make us feel very isolated. So then the question becomes is like, what do we do with feelings of isolation? Well, obviously, I think kind of step one is if you're feeling hurt, then you have to feel hurt. And I know that sounds weird, but because obviously the one thing we want to do when we're feeling hurt is we want to stop the pain. Okay, we don't want to feel things. So we do different things. We may disassociate from certain people and situations. A lot of times, this is one of the things that came up as part of the strategies of dealing with isolation is focus. Sometimes if we have been too reliant on certain people or situations, or expecting a past pattern to repeat itself, then this may be like, no, we need to get refocused on what's in front of us and what it is we're trying to do. So I feel like a lot of what's happened recently is meant to refocus our attention to where are we really going here? Whatever it is. And it's not necessarily going to be the same thing for every person. Okay, this is not like we're all doing the same thing. No, obviously not. I mean, we're all doing different things. But how are we refocusing our energy, right? We're also still astrologically in this gap. And I know I say this every time and people are probably tired of hearing it. We're like, when are we getting out of this stupid gap already, right? Because we were always told by mid-November things were going to calm down. Well, apparently, no, they're not going to calm down. But I was thinking yesterday, because a lot of the readings, I finished up, I think it was Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces yesterday. And it kept pointing me to a period, especially with Aquarius, a period of 7 days. And I was like, oh, duh, 7 days is when Pluto moves into Aquarius. That's the full moon's going to be the first thing, and then Saturn is going to station direct, and then it's going to go the other way, and then we have Pluto moving into Aquarius and staying there for 20 years. And one of the areas that really seems to has to do with the second house, has to do a lot with people's security and what they feel. Also, Chiron is activated. Chiron's in the 12th house right now. I think it's activating our 12th house. So this is where we have uncomfortable conversations and people saying things that they don't mean. And, there's all kinds of stuff that's connected to that as well. And so I think a lot of times we feel like, we're walking on eggshells right now with people. We got to be careful. I don't know. It's a very tumultuous time, and it seems that a lot of people just feel that isolation, or they may feel Three of Swords can be a sense of betrayal. I tend to think of the Ten of Swords as more being a card of betrayal, but I feel more like this is I don't know, like we're in a place where Uranus has kind of given us it's an awakener. I think Joanne, you would frequently ask me that question: which one's the one who's like the eliminator? And Uranus, I think, is more of it's a planet of liberation. So it's about, it can be an awakener, or it can be a slap in the face, but it also is about liberating you from things that are false. Okay, the Tower energy is the energy of Uranus. It's like, let's eliminate what's false here. So I'm off socials after 9 a.m. I'm fine with the I'm fine with the collective. Oh, okay. Well, it's very much what we're looking at here with this energy is with Uranus. It's very much. I think right now, like I said, as things are kind of shaken up, we do feel like we might feel like we are isolated. So, yeah. So the first thing is allowing yourself to feel whatever you're going to feel. To just kind of, I think the energy of, that was the other phrase, the energy that people have, and mind you, this is not the advice that my guides are giving me, but the suck it up energy, right? And it occurs to me that suck it up energy is, I don't necessarily think that is a good strategy, telling somebody to suck it up, especially if somebody is newly traumatized, wounded, and hurting. And even somebody who is traumatized in the past, Just simply telling somebody, well, enough time's passed, get over it, suck it up and move on. That's not helpful either, because all it does is create a sense of shame, first of all, around expressing how you feel about something. And secondly, it's kind of the way in which we can feel, if you're already feeling disempowered by what happened, now you just feel further disempowered because obviously you're bad, or you're not following the social script by still dwelling on it to some degree. And yes, we do, but that said, we do hear a lot about not being stuck in the past and not repeating past patterns. So, so there has to be a point at which, like in the Philoctetes example that I said when I was talking about him, he was the one who had the armor of Heracles in the Trojan War, and he was left on an island because he got a wound that frankly stunk, and so nobody wanted him on the ship. My fave is, look at the economy is doing. Y'all, yes, but humanity, the planet? Well, exactly. Well, that's very Capricornian too. Let's just focus on that, but there's more to life than money, and that's what I think a lot of people are realizing, because that can be very isolating too. If your whole thing is around how much you can acquire, stuff doesn't really replace people, right? So what this is saying, that the quote unquote suck it up thing, the problem with that is that also plays into pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's a reason to say we should not help people because people should help themselves. Yeah, feeling that, just be strong, move forward, but the feelings are still there, right? And the feelings have to be integrated. You can't just say that they're not there. And again, you can have the other extreme. I have seen the other extreme of people who feel like their whole life is what they have, a tragedy in their life, and literally that tragedy becomes, well, I can't do anything because this thing happened to me when I was 2, and you have to kind of, at some point you have to say, okay, you know what, that happened to you, I'm sorry, you need to release that and move forward. Sometimes if it becomes a defining part of your identity, where you say, I'm defined by my by my loss. I'm defined by this. I mean, it may be a scar that you have. Okay, it may be part of who you are, that you can't just pretend isn't there. And we need to look at it and confront it. But if we just say, well, I'm going to give up on things just because. I think that's the thing. And actually, Joanne, it was really interesting because I was watching her talk with Standing Bear, the podcast last night, which is really, really good. I think I want to put a link to that in my story because that was just fascinating to listen to him talk. And he is, and so he said something. I had it hard, you should too. Yes, but Suda, you're right. Oh, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, well, it was a really good episode, and he was talking about, because obviously he came from a Canadian Indigenous tribe, and they had been taking the children away at birth. There's a whole thing about that, taking the Native American children away, like the Catholic Church getting involved with this, and then, putting them in orphanages and stuff, taking them away from their families. And he was a victim of that, unfortunately. And he talks about the stuff he'd been through and all the difficulties that he'd had through his life and everything. But what I was really struck out was when he was talking to his elder, who was grandfather Tony, right? He talked to his elder and the elder said to him, asked him the one question that kind of set him on his path of healing, which was, so what happened to you? So what happened to you? And that really, I was actually almost crying when I heard that. I was like, yeah, what happened to you? And that's the question that people frequently don't ask. They just look at somebody who engages in certain types of reckless or delinquent behavior and says, oh, you're just a waste. You're just this, you're just that. Well, no, there's generally a story behind it. James Gilligan's work on violence, and he's no relation to Carol Gilligan, by the way, but he did a book about, I think it's titled Violence, where he spent a lot of time as a psychologist going into prisons and talking to prisoners about, really hardened violent criminals. And we're not saying that Wayne was one of those, but people who were hardened violent criminals, and finding out about their background. And when you went through their background, you found that these people were I remember he was talking about one person who said, yeah, his mother hated him so much she would just burn him all the time with cigarettes. I mean, these are people who, because they were treated a certain way or felt a certain way, this is where they ended up. And it's a possible path that they could end up on. And it takes a tremendous amount of strength. There has to be a tremendous amount of soul strength a lot of time to be able to move past that and to be able to do something constructive or something community oriented, you know? And he's really overcome a lot. I mean, it's super impressive. And to me, I always feel when somebody has really come from a place like that, where honestly, if they said that the system was going to completely break them, you could totally understand it. It's fascinating to see how, I mean, not even just fascinating, it's inspiring to see how somebody can really move that past that to a place of saying, okay, yes, I've recognized and integrated this experience, and now, but I'm going to focus on, I'm going to focus on me and what I have to offer. Okay, so there's kind of that thing. It's like, yes, you want to have time to grieve and to understand where you've been. And Wayne never talks about it in the sense, like, you don't hear him talk about it like, there's no melodrama about it. It's just very matter of fact. It's like, well, yeah, this is the thing that happened to me, and this is how I felt about it. But at the same time, it's something that's been negotiated, but a lot of times we don't have those opportunities to negotiate. People of older generations, like when we see things like our parents and things do certain things, they may belong to a generation that says, no, we don't talk about this. And that's where you kind of got to find that fine balance. Ideally, you do not want to let something like this define your life, but you also have to kind of keep moving on. We still have to keep moving through. So there needs to be an acknowledgement of the past. There needs to be an assessment of it, and to go through what everyone needs to go through to integrate that and to be able to, to find the light at the end of the tunnel of that, right? To find where it is that you're going. And that can be a really tricky process. Like in his case, I think reconnecting with his family and reconnecting with the tribe and tribal ceremonies, then you feel like you're part of something again. And that gets back to what I'm saying about isolation. Now, I'm disgusted, though, how to overcome that. Yeah, and it's interesting. I was watching, and my new habit in the morning, I used to watch late night monologues and stuff. Now I just watch Alan Watts in the morning. I just find that that's much more therapeutic. So I'm having breakfast. I usually watch the Alan Watts channel on YouTube. And I think also I'm going to post in my stories the one that I watched yesterday because it does refer to this topic. And it's basically entitled, Your Problems Don't Exist. And I'll explain that in a minute. Joanne says, he tells me I like to live life according to the outcome I want to see, not shame, blame, or guilt. Chaos bring chaos, loves bring love. Right, exactly. You attract what you are. And I think I think there's a lot of truth to that. That said, I mean, if somebody is feeling in chaos, they shouldn't feel like they're, I don't like spiritual shaming. That's the one thing which again, he's not doing and you're not doing. So, but sometimes people will just say, well, if your life is bad, it's because you're not thinking the right way. I've heard that from people, and I'm just like, no, it's because shitty things are going on. There's kind of the thing, but generally speaking, yes, you can see something as an opportunity, or you can see something as like an opportunity to grow and expand, or you can see it as an opportunity to withdraw. And we kind of may need to do certain things at different times, but ultimately it should move in that direction. I completely agree with that. Alex says, do you think at times there's a refusal of that? Like sometimes people just choose to stay in the pain and then cause pain to others. Well, that's just it. Sometimes people, I remember I think I did a live stream a long time ago about people who like victimhood. And sometimes, yeah, people really identify with that. Like the pain somehow is something, it's like a bittersweet place. It's kind of interesting. Alan Watts video, listen to videos and podcasts. Yeah, I stopped talking to a friend who used to use tough love as a way to be awful to me when I was hurting. Right, because sometimes that's just a way of saying, I'm not interested in your problems. People can do that, Our inner world, our reflection of our inner self. Right, and actually, Joanne, that's where I was going to with Alan Watts. Alan Watts, what he said was, if we see life as a problem, it's us versus the outer world. The outer world is a problem. He says, but the problem is that he said you are part of that world. You are in that space. In other words, you are an extension of that. You're not separate from that. Like the separation is an illusion. And every action that we take is an action we take with the whole system. So it's almost like you're operating in a field. And so the isolation is more, it's more something that we have in the mind when we think of ourselves. The mind comes in and tries to tell us that we are distinct. It's not worth giving yourself to someone who won't see you and hold space for you. No, absolutely not. And that is something that's going on right now. I think there's a lot of people, places, and situations where they're like, you know what? You're not supportive of me. You're not a friend to me. You're not, so adios amigo, or amiga. And, so yeah, that kind of thing can go on. But the Alan Watts piece is interesting because he's saying, a lot of times what we don't recognize, is because we think, that it's us and what we are doing to the world, or what our purpose is in the world, and he goes down and he starts looking at, if you really break life down, if you start looking at its components, if you start looking at the cellular components, and if you start looking at things, he says what you see are a lot of patterns. He says, and we tend to think that everything kind of runs in a certain pattern. And he says the definition of neurosis to a certain degree is the fact that we may keep continually just repeating a pattern very unconsciously, and not necessarily for a very good reason. And he says the way to get out of that is there is kind of this sense of needing to change the way of thinking, to kind of back up and say, and he says, and it's not something you can necessarily do. He says it's something, basically he said it's something you do already, but your mind tells you that you're not doing it. Okay, you're telling you that, no, I'm separate and I have to do this and that. And he says, but you're already doing the thing. You're already participating in the field. It's not so much that you have to do something different or think something different, except you just have to recognize that, the separation is coming in the thinking, but that it may not really be there. And so he said, so your life, he says, you're just kind of flowing into life. And yeah, there's not that distinction between the inner and the outer. It's like you are flowing into the space, and you are kind of flowing into whatever it is that you encounter. And he talks about the way in which we identify with things. Like he says everything exists in relation to each other. So, you can't, if I'm going to write a book, then I'm presumably because there's an audience, right? If you are, and anything that you are doing, you're doing it because there is something else that is responding to that. We exist in relationship to everything. Okay, there's this relationship that we have, and everything that we do is in relationship. And any action that we take has to do with a connection to the outer world. So he says a lot of times we think that we're not connected to that we're just operating in isolation, but we're not. So, and again, yeah, in some of those encounters, it's like any kind of pathway. Some pathways you're going to go on, some you're going to change direction and go somewhere else, but you're always part of the environment that you're in. It's not a guarantee that everything in the environment is wonderful or all the people around us are. But it's like you're part of a bigger system. I'm going to post the link because we're running out of time for this, but I'm going to post the link because I think it's a really interesting video to watch. But that seems to be something like, we're having this conversation about people who are not there, who don't support us, who don't hold space for us. And, and that's the thing. It's just, at some point we do kind of the trimming of the branch, the culling. We're like, okay, who is part of my circle? Because that's the other card that came up, was the Six of Swords that's in this deck. And that's the burden card. How much of a burden are we carrying from other people? And honestly, actually, Sam, the type of person who would say who there may be a place for tough love in certain cases. But if every time you're hurting, somebody just says, oh, well, suck it up, then that person is somebody who is not able to negotiate their own feelings. They're not comfortable with their own feelings. They don't, and so therefore you having feelings makes them uncomfortable. And so they're just telling you, and that's part of what we talk about with voice, right? We don't want to be silenced. We want to be able to tell our stories. We want somebody to listen to us. We want somebody to say, what happened to you, right? Because, and that goes back to what I said yesterday about validation, okay? We need to be validated. Even the biggest jerk in the world is like, there's something there. They're there for some reason. But, and by the way, that doesn't mean that we have to be all nicey nice with everybody and that everybody's going to be our friend, because some people it's just like, look, if that's where you are, that's not helpful to me. You know, have a nice life. You know, I mean, sometimes we have to make those decisions, but those decisions can be hard to make when we're not feeling. We want to be open and vulnerable, which is our strength, ironically, but we also need to be very solid in ourselves. Like I said, you know, to be able to say, no, you know what? I know what's right for me, and I know what you're saying to me is not right for me. And that what you're doing, you know, even if they're not doing it, okay, if you want to give that person the benefit of the doubt and say, well, they're not doing it intentionally, okay, or they're doing it unconsciously. I think even so, it's just like, okay, until you become conscious, this is not helping me, you know? Yeah, you have to go figure your own thing out. I'm not interested in figuring it out with you, you know? And you can do that. And again, that can be very painful depending on the kind of relationship that you have to that person. But generally, by the time you cut somebody off, you're really done. If you're still finding the separation to be too painful, maybe you're not done. But, and I say maybe, you know, because the pain of not being with the person or pain of not having the relationship, then maybe you're not quite done. But if you can turn around, like by the end of my marriage, I was just like, I literally looked like, I can't stand the sight of you. Can you please just leave my house? You know, can I please just move away? And moving into a space by myself was like the happiest thing that I did. I was just like, you know, just get out of my space, please. And so I just, and it just felt very liberating to walk into my own apartment and be like, yay, this is my space and you're not in it. So it could, because I just felt like he was just somebody, he became a burden. It was just like, you know, he would always tell me his needs were important and my job was to focus on his needs, and how dare I focus on my own, you know? And I was like, no, F you, bye. You know, and by that point, there was nothing there. People were like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, for what? Like, there was no heartbreak at that point. I'm like, look, dude, you want a mommy. I'm not going to be your mommy. Bye. You know, wish you well. I mean, I hope you're successful. I hope you figure your shit out. I mean, you know, but I'm not going to be part of it. You know, and, you know, and like I said, wherever he is, you know, I hope he's having a good life. You know, I haven't talked to him in probably over 10 years, and, you know, that's fine. You know, I'm down with that. But I've gotten to that point where it's just like, but there's no bitterness. There's not like, I hate you and I wish you were God. You know, there's none of that. It's just like, whatever, you know, you just go do your own thing. There's probably a certain amount of bitterness over where that left me with relationships, but, you know, ultimately when it came to him, it was just like, just whatever. I'm glad you're out of my space. So, you know, when something is like, okay, it's time to cut this off. It's not always that way for people, though. It can be a very difficult process. So our reading for today. Our center card is harmony. Wasn't I just talking about that, right? Being in harmony, 10 of Cups energy. Are we going to be in harmony with the people and the situations around us? And I hear the recycling truck coming, so anyway, I hope that doesn't make too much noise. And then we have our inner feeling of which we're unaware is interesting. We have the Master card, okay? So the Master card is the one that says, MasterCard, as opposed to Visa, right? Sorry, that was really terrible. And but any case, the Master is the one, whether it's our guru, whether it's our whether it's our inner guides, whether it's our spirit guides, whether it's a mentor or an elder or something like that, whatever it is, you know, you can you can, there's that, whatever that guide is that you have, whether it's a person, whether it's a spirit, whoever the guide is, whether, like I said, you know, whether it's a teacher, whoever that guide is internally, that's the unconscious force here. So I feel like this is more of an internal guide or a spirit guide, or it could be a guru too, because the guru does have that connection with your consciousness. So it's almost like there's a master here who's kind of guiding things towards harmony, kind of behind the scenes. Now, the external feeling that we're feeling is the outsider, okay? And this is exactly the energy I was talking about. I mean, the Three of Swords was what was coming up before, but this is also the idea that we are the outsider, that we're not part of the group, we're not part of the club, we're not accepted, right? That's that kind of energy. And that may be the way we feel right now. Like we are, we're on the outskirts. And, and again, the fact that this is a child on this card, this is an attitude that we perhaps could have retained from childhood or from childhood experiences, or just from things that happened to us in our past when we were younger, right? But this is interesting. We have the Ace of Pentacles. We have the Maturity card, all right? So the Maturity card is telling us, again, it's that, to me, that has a lot to do with that center point, that place where we know who we are. And remember, and this is the Ace of Rainbows in this card. So that's Pentacles. That's Earth energy. That's where we're solid. The solid new beginning that we're making. The foundation, the firm foundation. We've been seeing a lot. Normally, I talk a lot about going with the flow of things, but this is more that counterbalancing energy of laying down the foundation, making a plan. Putting your feet on the ground, because sometimes when we're in that space, when we're in this space, it can be because we are having a bit of an ungrounded energy. We may feel, because it's almost like Seven of Cups energy, really, more than that, where it's like, oh my God, what's going on? There's too many possibilities. Some are good, some are bad. What's real, what's not real. We're in that space of not knowing what's what. So maturity is just kind of like operating from that place of maturity, that place of experience, that place of knowing what is a child-ish reaction. Now, mind you, I'm not saying childlike. We've talked about being like a child, but innocence and childlike is not the same as childish, right? Childish is kind of the child who, that wants to respond in in a way that's kind of like throwing a tantrum almost, And truthfully, if we want to throw a tantrum, I don't have any problem with us sitting in our room and saying thinking whatever we're going to think, or saying whatever we're going to say, or punching the pillow or the wall. I don't really have any issue with doing that, as long as you're not hurting anybody else by doing that. But I think we have a right to our feelings, whatever they are, and I think you have to move through those feelings. But you're doing this from the place of maturity, so where you say, okay, I'm recognized that I'm having these feelings. These feelings are valid. Yes, that's what I'm trying to avoid. The tantrum versus chasing inner peace. Right, exactly. And the thing is, in order to achieve inner peace, you have to have some kind of an outlet, which of course for me is why I always say creativity is a great outlet, because doing something with it, or even just something symbolic for ourselves, sometimes that's just something to satisfy the feeling. We may not always be able to confront something directly. If somebody makes us mad, we can't just go punch them in the face, even if we might think that we feel like it in that moment. That's, we have to find another way to release or refocus that energy. So a lot of this is about refocusing energy, getting other people's priorities for us. That's where you want to do the sorting, saying, okay, what's me and what I need to do? What are my priorities versus what everyone else thinks my priorities should be, or how I should be, or what my narrative should be, or what distinguish between a lot of people here are very empathic. So it's like you're a sponge. You suck up everybody else's kind of feelings, and then it becomes hard to. Then you start to that's where the self-doubt comes in. You're like, well, because if you're picking up on someone else's feeling, you're like, well, am I doing this wrong? Is this is this happening? Is that happening? But you need to. There's that finding that kind of solid point. And the outcome is interesting because, yes, without even realizing it, well, exactly, it's unconscious. It's totally unconscious. And we don't, because we just do it as part of a pattern. You're going to love this Alan Watts video. I'm going to post it this morning because I was just listening to it the other day. And this is something he's talked about. I have another book of his on Psychology East and West that I've been reading. And he talks about this same kind of a thing. The fact that you are not distinct from the system, right? But our outcome is change. Okay? So now, again, when we see a major arcana like this, we're talking about a change that is, it's not just about what's going on in our individual lives. Because all of us have our individual stuff. Some of you, I talk with you and I know what it is. Other people, maybe I do or don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter. We all know we're going through stuff, right? We all have things. Even if we weren't in such a intense astrological period, We're still going through stuff. We're always going through stuff. That's kind of part of life. But the question, I think, here is just kind of, if we want to look at something harmoniously, how do we get in harmony with the system that we're in? That's the question, because we always look at everything as kind of a split. Now, again, I'm just saying, we're picking up the feelings of people around us, but it's almost like we have to be in that center, okay? This is us in the center, right? That's you in the center saying, okay, all this change is happening around me. Where's my quiet space so I can, figure out, find the connection point, find where the connection is, find where the harmony is. Because when you have that kind of experience, you recognize that a lot of what we worry about day to day on an individual basis, that it's almost like you just kind of have to get into the flow of things, and it's like the solutions kind of present themselves. Where you're going, where you're heading, who you're moving towards, who you're moving away from, right? Don Miguel Ruiz, Don't Take Anything Personally, The Four Agreements, great little book. Right. The world isn't personal, and that's also the rune Nauthiz in the runes says it's pretty much the same thing. It's the idea that, and that's Saturn influence, by the way. Saturn is the limitation. Saturn is where we are challenged, where things are put in our face, and it's like, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to respond to this? And when we look at it and say, okay, most of what's going on in the world is not personal, and I am connected and I am participating. It actually almost goes back to, what was it Joseph Campbell had said at one point, because Bill Moyers had said to him, because he was talking about how, that life is a giant opera, but it hurts, right? And he's like, it's all just a big play. And Bill Moyers says, yes, but wouldn't you, taking that point of view, wouldn't you say, well, don't fight against injustice, don't do this, don't do that? Like, if you're just going to say, oh, there's always going to be good and bad, and we just have to accept it. And he said, no. He says, I'm not saying that at all. He says, you could take that point of view. He says, but, you participate. You're participating in the drama. He said, so, he says, like, it's the old Irish saying, this is a private fight. Can anybody get in on it? It's just like, how do we, where do we fit in? And where do we feel drawn to? What do we feel our role is? Some people are going to be taking, say, activist roles or doing other things. Other people, maybe just making choices about, where they want to go next in their life. If you feel like a lot of that Four of Wands energy, right? Okay, we're at the gateway. Look, I've done all these nice things. I have this nice secure space. So what's next? So where's, I've had a nice stopping off point. Where am I going to go now? And who am I going with? A lot of times we may just feel like, because ultimately there's some parts of the journey that you have to make alone. But even in that space, really, we're never really, truly, totally alone. So that I think was kind of the message that was coming through today. And my Azrael messages this morning did indicate that this full moon's going to be there's going to be the ending of something. And I said, well, is this going to be a very unpleasant ending? And he said, no, but we'll see what that ends up meaning. Okay, I just wanted to do one of these. And our card is the invigorating card, the invigorating oil. The keyword is bliss. The trigger statement is, why am I here? Okay, that gets back to questions of purpose, right? The true statement is, I make a difference. You will have the motivation you need to express your light. Know that what you do today makes the world a better place. Yeah, that's what we're being motivated towards doing. Towards what are we going to do that's going to make the world a better place? We can be unhappy about something. We can take the time to recognize that something wounds us or that it hurts us. But in order to heal it, it's like if you have a scab, you can't keep picking at the scab. At some point, you've just kind of got to let it heal. We have to reach, if we're going to move towards healing, we have to say, okay, what are we, how are we participating? What are we going to do to make a difference? And again, that doesn't mean accepting crappy behavior from people or saying, well, if somebody's engaging in something that we feel is hurtful, that we have to say, but it's okay that you do that. I mean, they're going to do that. You might have to accept the fact that that's the way they are and that's what they're going to do. You're not going to change them, right? This is not about changing other people, because the only people ultimately we can change is ourselves. We just have to either look at it differently and make our decisions for ourselves about what we're doing and where we're going. Okay, and they're not always easy decisions to make, but that's part of the challenge of life. This is the thing. So our focus is being shifted to, okay, It's a lot of North Node energy, like what moving out of your comfort zone. And that's a lot of it. North Node is moving out of your comfort zone. Okay, now we're going to move into a new space. And like I said, if you're tired and you're like, I'm not ready, I don't want to move into a new space. I'm kind of happy where I am. Well, we're still being called to move to a new space. So kind of how do we negotiate that? So anyway, those are my little thoughts for today for what they're worth. I hope this is helpful to you guys. Again, we're past time, so I need to move on and get stuff done. Oh, you're welcome. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Like I said, I'll post that stuff this morning before I get involved in something else and forget. And I will reach out to ISFM students just to make sure everybody has what they need. You're welcome. Yep, have a beautiful day. Some of you I will see tonight. And and so I hope you have a really great, I guess it's hump day, right? It's Wednesday. So I hope you have a great day. Thank you, and I'll see you everybody. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow too. Take care now.